Well, I'd like to welcome Todd Leahy, member of ACE 3 and middle school teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina. Todd's going to talk to us this evening about life in ACE, and he'll give you the real story, right? Welcome, Todd.
Didn't expect this many people. That's all right. I was so excited when they asked me to come up here to speak to y'all. When you get into the program, when you get a sub, first of all, you actually feel you can take days off and get substitutes. Whoever it was, I just left a mound of worksheets, and I said, good luck, have it, I'm going to Notre Dame. But welcome to the informational ACE night. It seems like the crowd has doubled in the 2 years since I was sitting in those seats wondering what in the heck I'm going to do after I graduate from Notre Dame. And I thought back to my sophomore year at Notre Dame, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was a senior named Dave, and he was talking about this teaching program. Didn't know a whole lot about it. What was more important to me was that it returned people to the South. I guess I should tell you now I'm from South Carolina. And people that know me would agree that I'm pretty proud of that fact. More on that later. And so we were talking about this program, and he finally got in, and I sort of lost touch with him until my junior year. He's coming back to visit. And I asked him, I said, how are things going? He says, well, I got these students, he's in Baton Rouge teaching English to a bunch of freshmen. And I'm thinking, wow, well, that's pretty neat, sitting in the classroom talking about some literature with some high school kids. I think I could do this. So I'm starting to think about the program now for the teaching aspect more than the fact that I get to go back to the South. Well, senior year, I was an art major. No big six firms come to Notre Dame recruiting art majors. You're thinking probably service is the best avenue to take. And by now, ACE has sort of puffed its chest out a little bit. It's the service program that people want to apply to. So I decided, hey, I'll see what's going on here. Got 2 years teaching. I've thought about it a little bit. I'll see what it's like. And I sat there wondering probably the same things that y'all are wondering. What is it actually like to be in a classroom in front of 30, 35 kids? What happens to people when they graduate from ACE? Things like that were just going through my mind, and I was hoping that this night, back 2 years ago, was going to fill in some of those gaps. But like I mentioned earlier, it does send people back down to the South. And let me just go ahead and dispel any myths about the South that I think are existing out there. Deliverance is not a documentary. Some people sort of think that. As soon as they walk into their communities, they think they're going to hear dueling banjos in the background. We have NASCAR, we have country music and grits and pickup trucks, but we also have the most hospitable people you've ever met in your life. And I can guarantee that every ACE community, the people in that city and the people in the school systems have welcomed those teachers with open arms. I think from top to bottom, it's really been a wonderful experience. Even in Charlotte, you go somewhere and you say you're one of the ACE teachers, and people's eyebrows immediately go up. I mean, from top to bottom, they know about ACE and they're looking out for us. And when you get into the program, you'll experience the same thing. But hopefully I'll sort of address the other issues, the other concerns you have when I talk about the 3 pillars of the ACE experience, which is teaching, community life, and your faith life, your spiritual development. My mom's been a teacher for 27 years, and it's gotten to the point now she's ashamed to admit she's teaching children of former students. John was talking about earlier, if there's anything that makes you realize how old you're getting, try that one. You're teaching kids of former students. And I had such a positive experience in high school, I thought I could do things like this. I could stand in front of the class and talk to kids and teach them whatever. As an art major, I was thinking more art and computers and possibly religion. Well, naturally, that progressed into 7th grade math. So, you do need to learn how to be flexible with the ACE experience. So I thought, what the heck, I'll apply for the program. It's a 2-year obligation. The worst that can happen is I have a master's degree and I go do something else. Well, little did I know that when you become a teacher, you become a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a fight referee, a note taker, and I'm talking like a note that somebody passes to another class, a broken heart mender, a cheerleader, a fan, a chauffeur, a nose wiper. I mean, you name it, we do it. A first aid provider. Some kid scrapes his knee at recess. You got to be there with something because the kid, I mean, he'll cry over anything, you know. So it's really the most rewarding and probably at the same time the most stressful job that you could ever have. Because you put yourself out there every day for your students, and you really don't know from day to day how they're going to react. I mean, the video said, Dave said, there's really no normal day, and he is absolutely right. I mean, the little things you forget about, assemblies, field trips. I mean, my first field trip, I completely forgot that you got on buses and went to Greek festivals or went to zoos. I completely forgot about stuff like that from high school or from middle school. So that's the neat stuff that goes on when you teach. But like I said, you're putting yourself out there, and you really don't know how the students are going to react to you. In fact, I think the one question I hear the most from my students is, what are we going to do today? Which translated means, how are you going to amuse me? And a student asks you that, and you're thinking to yourself, well, we're doing multiplying mixed numbers. How in the world am I going to jazz that up a little bit after the students just asked me, how are you going to amuse me today? And I think back, I remember who my 7th grade math teacher was, not particularly because of what she taught me, but because of who she was. And as a teacher, I think that motivates you. 10 years from now, how are my students going to remember me? And if you're interested in specifics, which I think if you're sitting there wondering what it actually is like in a classroom, when you get into ACE, don't compare it to your summer school experience that they send you through. I mean, kids in summer school aren't there because they want to be there. They're there because they failed or something. So your summer school experience is not what you're going to face in real life. And looking back, I think that the first day of school was probably the most prepared I was because I had planned everything, an activity, I had everything all lined up, their textbooks, their locker assignments, the mounds of paperwork that goes home to the parents on the first day of school. And I had an activity to see if they could name a career that didn't involve math, and it was going really well. And then I opened up the textbook, and I looked at it, and I froze. I said, of all this preparation that I've done, I've completely forgot that I've got to teach this stuff. And I think the realization hit me that this is it. I mean, this is what separates me, the teacher, from them, the students. That first day, you're just wanting to be accepted by them, and you hope they warm up to you. But then you open up that book and you start talking, and you become their 7th grade math teacher, and they become your first ever classroom of students. It's a pretty amazing feeling being up there. My mom gave me a great piece of advice when I started out. She said, you don't need to be their friend. They have lots of friends. You just want them to like you, and you just want to like them. And trust me, I think once you get to know them, even the ones that don't do any homework, the ones that perform the worst on your test, the ones that talk constantly in class, even those kids will make you smile almost every day. And I think those are what drive you. We just had parent conferences about a week and a half ago. Parent conferences for our school, Tuesday night from 6 to 8, you sit there behind a table and the parents come and they talk to you about what their son or daughter is doing in your class. And you sit there and take it. And then all day Wednesday, from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, same thing. Parent after parent sits down in front of you, and you have to explain to them what they're doing in class and why they're getting a C and why not an A. But when a parent sits down across from you and says, oh, Sue absolutely loves math. She could be lying for all you know. But the fact that Sue is at least talking about you at home is a wonderful feeling. I don't care what they're saying about me. The name's getting out there, you know? So you're making some sort of an impact on their lives. The fact that they go home and the mom says, how'd you do at school today? They say something about Mr. Leahy's math class. I mean, it's a good feeling. And last year I started off the day, most of the days, doing a crossword puzzle in my homeroom. It's called AA, Advisor Advisee. So as soon as the first class would come in, I'd tuck a pencil behind my ear or have pens in my pockets. And I guess imitation is the highest form of flattery. It didn't take long for students to walk into my classroom with pens in their pockets and pens behind their ears. And You know, hey, Mr. Leahy, where are you? Ha ha. I said, so, those are really the memories that you bring from your first year. And there's one story that I must tell. I was thinking that somebody up here was going to rat on me before I had a chance to say it. There's a chair incident. I had a computer table in my room, but no computer, and a computer chair, one of them that turns and rolls around. And I didn't really notice, but after about a month and a half, the first student in the classroom would run to the chair because they got to sit there that day, and they got to spin around, and they got to roll all over the room and create a disturbance. I had it just up to here one day with the chair. And so I had the book in my hand, and this kid was just constantly rolling around. And without even missing a beat, I said, all right, stand up. I grabbed the chair with the other hand, walked to the back of the room, opened up the door, opened up the other door because the first door opened up into a little alcove, and they opened up the door, and sort of tossed it outside in a big computer chair. It landed about 20 yards away, and walked back in. And continued with the next problem, like nothing had happened. Well, that class was real good for the rest of it. And the other classes who had seen what happened out a window, they were also pretty good. Not that I condone activities like that from a teacher, but some days are going to be great, and some days you're going to need to toss a chair or two. But at the end of the day, and sort of bleeding into the community aspect of ACE, at the end of the day, you have the opportunity to come home to community members and sort of dump your world on them. And sometimes they're going to say, oh, yeah, too bad. But most of the time they're going to say, really? Well, listen to my day, you know? Enough with your chair stuff. Listen to my day. And I think that's one of the advantages of living in the community, the chance to share common teaching experiences with these kids. You know, as I've said, community members, you're not really roommates anymore. I think roommates are sort of left back in colleges. You're no longer walking with people to the dining hall or to Bar de Lo. There's no dollar import nights anymore or party at Turtle Creek because you have no stamina anymore. You don't. So they become, I mean, literally, they become your brothers and sisters. And they would kick my butt if I didn't mention them. It's Shannon Brennan, Kelly Cox, Jenny Robinson, and Peter Sleece. If you recognize those names, you know that it's been a wonderful experience so far with them. But you learn so much from each other. You learn new ways to enjoy being around people. You take walks. You go to Barnes and Nobles and just sit for 2 hours in quietness. You do things like, and even going to the movies and going to dinners, you're not asking anymore what movie we're going to see or what restaurant we're going to go to. You're asking, well, do we have to pay out of our own pocket, or is the community fund going to pick up? Things like that. You get the chance to sort of bounce off ideas with them. And it's an amazing thing because there's no hiding from them. Your weaknesses are exposed, but your strengths are emphasized because you get to share with each other. You know, last year I think we sort of pride ourselves. We thought we were the model community. We had dinner 5 times a week. This year, you know, it's about 4 or 5 times a week still. And it's just a chance to sit and talk at the dinner table. And sometimes they're pleasant conversations. Sometimes it's, you know, why did you leave 2 drops of milk in the carton? Why did you run over a stump with a lawnmower and bend the blade? I mean, there are going to be arguments like there is in any type of relationship. But you have a community that is there when you need them. You come home at the end of the day, and the video really makes a good point of this. You come home at the end of the day, and it could be great or it could be horrible. And there's somebody there that's going to say, yeah, I've been there myself. I know what it's like. That's a wonderful thing. And one of the things that we've been able to talk about openly in our house is our faith lives. The ability to share that has truly been nice. And sometimes it gets to the point where we say, all right, this Tuesday, this is going to be our prayer night, okay? Whatever you have, drop it. And we've dropped a lot of things to be in communities. I mean, I gave up Hornet versus Chicago Bulls tickets once because it was our last night together as a community before Christmas break, and I didn't mind doing it. They said, I got some tickets. I said, I can't do it. I got to be with my community. You plan your schedule around dinners. It teaches you a lot about responsibility. I mean, if it's your night to cook, you better make sure there's food on the table for the other 4 housemates. I'm going to be a pretty good father one day because my kids are going to have their meal if it's my day to cook it. I have skipped a lot of things to put taco salad or spaghetti on the table for these people. I've vacuumed houses, I've dusted shelves. I mean, it's a great way to learn domestic skills also. But like I was saying, one of the things that we've been able to do is openly share our faiths. And one of the ways we do it is through our prayer night. And if nothing else, it's just a chance for you to come together to say, you're doing fine, or good luck with the project that you've got going on in your class this week, or just a moment for you to reflect and to ask God's blessing for patience, humility. You're going to need a lot of both. But then to take that a step further and to bring it into your classroom. I don't think there's any more precious gift that you can give a student than your own personal experiences with God. Charlotte is sort of one of the more urban cities in ACE, and we're certainly not under-resourced at all. We have a lot of kids that come from affluent families. But that doesn't mean that they're not immune to the same types of problems that other underprivileged kids face. Sometimes I get the feeling that the parents drop them off at 8 in the morning and say, you deal with them for the next 7 or so hours, because I'm fed up with them. We have a lot of kids out there in our school system who are hurting for attention and hurting for direction. And what a perfect opportunity for you to jump in and sort of fill in gaps with your own personal experiences with God and your own faith lives. It's a wonderful thing. And sometimes you don't get any feedback from them, but you still keep pouring it on them. And you wonder if you're really making a difference in their faith lives until something happens where they really open up. Back in February, I lost my father. He passed away. And ACE was there immediately to offer support and prayers for my family. And I truly couldn't have pulled through if it wasn't for their help. And Father Scully was gracious enough to come down and be with our family and preside over the funeral. And it was a low point in my life. But when I got back to Charlotte, on my bed was a huge envelope stuffed with letters from my students. And they said, Mr. Leahy, I don't even know who your father was, but I'm praying for him. We want you to, hurry up and come back to school. We're praying for him, things like that. And you think, wow, where did this come from? And these kids, 12 years old, are coming up with the most eloquent words that any 12-year-old can muster about death. And you're thinking, something's getting to them. I'm reaching it somehow. And then I come back to school after the week and a half that I was not there. And to have the kid that you are constantly reminding to be quiet, because I'm trying to do the work up here, when he wraps his arms around you and says, Mr. Leahy, I'm sorry and welcome back. I mean, your heart just breaks because you think, sometimes I missed the point. Sometimes all I have to do is just say a little bit to these kids and let them run with it for a long, long time. And you feel good. You feel like the math stuff is fine. I'm glad they can add fractions, and I'm glad they can multiply decimals. But to see a kid open up to you and just sit down and talk about whatever he's thinking that day, I think those are truly the rewarding experiences with ACE. I congratulate each one of you for making the effort to come tonight. If you're still wondering what people do after ACE, a lot go into teaching. There's some in law school, some in medical school. My buddy Dave, who I mentioned earlier, he's down in Australia, the Notre Dame program. So people go through ACE and they do wonderful, wonderful things. But I guarantee most of them will go back in however many years and see their first ever graduating classroom from high school. I know I am. Because these kids are really, really excited about the ACE teachers and really, really excited to get to know each one of you as people. They're curious about the living arrangements. You live with women? What? Well, it's not exactly, I sort of brush over the subject a little bit. How about the Panthers game? Did you watch that? No, tell me about the women that you live with. Well, I'll talk to you later about that. But I mean, kids are they're incomplete people is what they are. But the chance to work with them, the chance to share a little bit about yourself and to share a little bit about what you know with them is an absolutely wonderful feeling. And to do that in the ACE program, I think is rewarding, because you might be a teacher somewhere else, but for 2 years you're an ACE teacher, and it means a whole lot to a whole bunch of people. So thank you, and best of luck to you in your application process.